All right, excited to have our listeners back for another episode of the Aha Moment. We are joined today by, of course, my lovely co-host, Amanda Kocherka.
Hello.
Hello, member of our team here at DA. And then the woman of the hour, Miss Wendy Bahm, the Chief Culture Officer at Networking Technologies. Wendy, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I know we're all here to talk about something that is a favorite topic, really, of all three of us, and that is organizational culture. So maybe, Wendy, if you don't mind, because our listeners have heard all about us, we would love if you could just share a little bit about yourself and how it came to be that organizational culture was even something you focused on as a career.
Oh, wow. So I'm the Chief Culture Officer at Networking Technologies. Been focused on culture for probably the last 4 years. The company's been in existence for 27 years, and I'm co-owner with my husband. And so in 2018, he came to me and said, I really need you to focus on marketing and culture. And I kind of got stuck in the marketing loop and then took some time away. And when he came back, said, listen, all I want to do is culture. Marketing's great, but it's not what really spoke to me. I really wanted to dive deep into our culture. And that's how I met my great friends here. And I'm so excited to talk about something I love and I'm passionate about with people that I love talking to about it.
Oh, nice.
And I just love the Chief Culture Officer title.
Yes.
So every time I talk about the fact that that's your title, it just makes me so happy because it's not a title you hear frequently enough, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Which is why we're here.
Right. That is exactly why we're here. And something that I think is pretty interesting and unique, I would say, about Networking Technologies when we talk about the organization that actually has invested in culture so much so that they have a Chief Culture Officer is the fact that the vast majority, if not all of your employees currently, and for quite a bit of years now, work virtually, right? So
yes, I mean, since COVID, when it was time to, we could come back to the office, I surveyed all the employees to see where we were at with that. When we first went into COVID, they're like, no, I hate this. And then for a while, they're like, I'm never coming back to the office. And then as it went on, they're like, okay, maybe I'll come back to the office a little bit. So their survey results showed that they wanted a hybrid situation. They didn't want to be there all the time, but they didn't want to be completely remote unless that position was already a remote position.
Sure.
And so we created this hybrid environment that really does work for us. The assumption that somebody's working for you hard just because they're sitting at a desk in your office is false.
yes, I would agree.
That is not necessarily the assumption that's an engaged employee is wrong.
Before we talk about too much in terms of culture, again, for our listeners, maybe you could paint a picture a little bit at a high level of what was it that really led you and your husband, who are the co-owners of Networking Technologies, what was it that led you to think, hey, there's an opportunity here to invest in our culture in a very intentional and different way?
Yeah.
What was it?
I think what had happened is we were butting heads. I'm like, no, I think people feel like this. And he's like, how do you even know that? I don't believe it. I think they feel like this. And we were going back and forth. And I had a strong gut instinct of what was going on in our culture and what was not working. But a gut instinct didn't speak to my data-driven husband.
Right.
So how did I provide him? I needed something. How can I provide data for him that he can see what I'm seeing and to also prove to myself I'm right or wrong? I could be easily wrong. So that's what brought us to Decision Associates. And I remember our first meeting, just our frustrations clearly played out in the room.
I remember
clearly. And Elizabeth's like, no, I can get you the data. And this is how we can do it. And that was the beginning of both of us getting on the same page and having a vision. I knew that we were setting the narrative. What I couldn't get him to see, and often what leaders to see, is my gut instinct was right, but they want the data.
Sure.
Right? They've worked their whole life to keep this business, and it's driven by data. So, and I just didn't know how to provide that data. And when I showed up here at Decision Associates, you gave me that tool that could provide the data and build on what my gut was telling me.
Referenced quietly quitting. The fact that, hey, just because someone's butt is in a seat in the four walls of your office doesn't necessarily mean that they're engaged. They could be quietly quitting. And I'm just curious from your vantage point, when you think about what you've gleaned from really diving deep into your culture, what are some of those red flags? What are some of those symptoms for organizational leaders to look out for, to recognize if their employees are really slipping away from a culture perspective and not engaged and not happy and not productive?
One of the tell signs for me is that you see an employee or employees that often are saying negative things. They're the ones entertaining an audience at the water cooler. People kind of join quickly onto the bandwagon of whatever that negative banter may be. They are people who walk into a meeting and really never say much of anything. They show up in time for work. They leave as quickly as possible. And they're always looking to fly under the radar. If you don't have processes in place to engage with your employees on a regular basis, they avoid.
It's easy for that to happen.
It's easy for them to slip through the cracks and kind of avoid and go on undetected.
Yeah.
And coworkers are picking up their work, so you might have, all of a sudden you have somebody on their team going, I just can't keep up. The workload's too much. And then this person is never complaining about workload. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So yeah, I think and I think that is more common than somebody walking around the office raging.
Right.
They're just, especially with this younger generation, they're just like, they just kind of just slip away.
You notice you didn't get to the topic of productivity slipping until like the third or fourth thing you said. So, looking for, we've got a drop in productivity, that may not be the first sign.
No, definitely
There's signs
not.
that happen before that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That you maybe have to be paying a little bit closer attention to. But I think, waiting to see if there's a drop in productivity, you're already well down that path of having toxic culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you overemphasize productivity and that's your only measurement, because I know that I cut my teeth throughout my career working in engineering organizations, right, as a HR executive. And I know that a lot of times looking at, A plus B equals C, looking at productivity numbers or hard data, in fact, that's...
What's our billable hours?
Exactly.
Those kind of metrics, right? And so when you focus on just productivity, that person sees themselves as just part of the cog.
Yeah.
We refer to my team as culture and talent because truly these are talented individuals we're bringing on. We're looking for people who are engaged, who want to build their career, who want to invest. So it's beyond a cog in a wheel.
Yes, it definitely is. And when you think back to when you first kind of tried to wrap your head around what do we do to even figure out our current cultural state, let alone once we get those results, what do we do about it? Kind of relate to the audience and our listeners what that journey looked like for you. How was it that you were able to get people to wrap their head around the why, let alone the what, before you could even get to, okay, what do we do about it?
Yes. So I would say it always has to flow from the top. So the first thing I had to do was to convince the CEO, my husband, that this was of value, that it would make a difference to know what people were actually thinking, where they actually were at, and what was playing out in our organization. And I had to get his buy-in in a way that he's willing to hear what they had to say and willing to let me introduce a way to change the narrative. And that was a balancing act. So here's the data. This is what it produced. a lot of frustration. And so it was just going back and forth. But it was those small wins, like taking the low-hanging fruit, those small wins, starting to see the shift in our organization. And he got a little more confident about the work we were doing. Other people on our leadership team were like, hey, this is working. This is making a difference. Those people who were entertaining in the break room, negative conversation, or would easily derail a presentation or a big meeting by snide comments, they were losing an audience. People were like, yeah, we don't. No, that's not what we do around here. We don't talk like that. Like, stop, we're listening. So those small shifts, those small wins started to build on themselves. And now it's like culture is a huge part of our organization. Every organization has culture. So it's not like, like, oh, we have culture now. Every organization has culture. Yes. It's like, but what is your culture? We're intentional. We know what we want to see the end result is. And we've worked hard to figure out how to get there. From the moment we post an ad, from the moment we're creating a job description, we're infusing it with our core culture, our core values, our why. We know who our ideal employee is, who works best at networking technologies. Not every company is a good fit for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, sometimes you get caught up in interviewing and you're like, I just need the job. I just need the job.
Yep.
And then you get in the job and you're like, oh my God, I just need to get out of here. I just need to get out of here. So you need to be interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. Turnover is a huge cost to an organization. I'm looking to ensure that I'm onboarding people who get it, want it, have the capacity, who speak to our core values, and that really can be engaged in what we do.
Candidates sometimes will just say, I just want the job, it's okay. On the flip side of that same coin, a lot of times hiring managers will say, we just need to get the position filled.
Yeah, I just need a body in the
time.
seat.
I just
Yeah,
need a
I
body
just need
in
a
the
warm
seat.
body.
That feels good, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes.
I know. So I'm not saying networking technologies was like that. I'm not.
Well, I can say that there wasn't a lot of process around our hiring.
Okay.
So it was building that process and holding people accountable, our leadership team accountable, and really, being engaged in that process. Because we started the business, so it went from 2 people to 5 people to 10 people. So some of the things we did early on, you're wearing all the hats.
Right. Yes.
And then as you grow, you got to take some of these hats off, and that wasn't happening. And things started falling through, and our hiring process was taking forever because this person didn't have the time to review resumes. And, it just became problematic.
Right.
So it was building out that process, sticking to it, being very conscious and aware of what we're doing, what we're looking at. Like from the moment I post an ad to the moment we hire, I really try to keep it within 30 days.
That's a good target.
Sometimes I get pushed like, do you have the ad up yet? Do they have the ad up yet? No, we're not ready. Nope, you didn't answer this question.
Yeah.
I don't want to post an ad until I know that we have the capacity across our organization to move that candidate through.
What would you say to leaders who, quite understandably, are wearing 100 different hats? They have so many demands that are competing for their attention, all of these fires that are burning. What would you say to someone listening to this who I just described, who's thinking, okay, that's cute, that's nice, I don't have time?
Yes, right? Yes, I don't have time, for sure. Yes, but you can't be a leader if no one's following you. And if you're so busy running around putting out all the fires yourself, doing all the work yourself, and frustrated that no one's there to help you out, support you, then it's time to take a look in the mirror. Like you are in your own way.
Right.
Yeah.
You have surrounded yourself with really competent, capable people. You need to empower them.
Yep.
And they don't feel that from you. It's really easy to get stuck in the, just got to get it done, just got to get it done.
Yeah.
But you as a leader need to step up and take that high level view and go, what is happening across the organization, especially those entrepreneurs who are doing a startup business that is growing. All of a sudden, you're like stretched so thin. You have staff that is contacting, you went from 3 people meeting with them once a day. We all have our task. And then all of a sudden, you have 25 people knocking on your door a day. And you're still in the work of the business. Yeah, it is like, take a deep breath and refocus. You can't afford not to.
what type of quote unquote work, what type of behaviors would be the most important to be demonstrative of the investment coming from the tippy top of the organization to really trickle down to the culture?
Yeah, I think the work starts first at the top. We did the culture assessment. It was very telling. We reviewed the results with the leadership team. We worked with you to get started, right? We looked at low-hanging fruit. What can we do? And then came up with plans. Some of it I was able to just do on my own, or working with you. We're like, okay, this is easy. And I presented to the leadership team, and get buy-in. Others were a little bigger in focus and needed the team's interaction. And it's just built from there, starting with that low-hanging fruit, seeing those small movements forward, really built momentum. Really, it was easier to find the time to invest because, I know this will help. I'm seeing this and this is working. Our employees are recommending people to come work for us. Wait a minute. Our clients are there's a bigger response. So those small, addressing that low-hanging fruit, hitting those small strides moving forward has allowed us to make bigger strides. So, and it's all happened piece by piece by piece. I think anytime you implement change, people are inherently resistant. We don't like change. We often are willing to stay in a job that we don't even like for a very long time because the effort of making the change and going to look for another job, that is way too much. So we stick to something. We know it's not working, but we're too much work to do something different. So making those small changes and building on them over time really has allowed us to step into being a culture that I have employees, when we get our open-ended questions, sometimes the comments hit so hard, but I always make the point, they're so good.
Right.
They feel like they are in a safe place, in a trusted environment, and that if they tell us this, we'll do something about it.
Yes.
Have you noticed an evolution of the open-ended responses?
I think Amanda would agree with that. Yes,
definitely.
because you continue to do our culture assessment, we guarantee our employees it's anonymous. We're a tech company, so they would not believe me if I did it. No, really, it's anonymous. They would think I would know how to back end it.
Sure.
Which I would not. But so you continue to execute that for us, and those comments, sometimes hard to hear, but often very constructive, very telling.
There's, you talked about the smaller steps, kind of tackling things, baby steps, right, to make big change, and an openness at the top of the organization to acknowledge that things aren't perfect and there are areas that need to be addressed, because I think we've worked with plenty of clients where that's been a barrier. And
definitely,
it's one of those situations where, I want to do a culture survey, and then they get the results back, and it's highlighting, shining a light on some areas that are really not so flattering, in addition to the ones that are great.
Well, sometimes in leadership,
focus on those.
It's shining a light on you.
Right. And then it's whoa, brakes.
This was a great idea until this came up. Right. And I think that is work that you have to do with your leadership team.
Yes.
That is your leadership team being in a trusted environment.
Yes.
That is your leadership team going, that's why I send the results, get all your feels out, get all your defensiveness out. And when you come to the table, if you start there, I'm going to pull you back. I'm going to be but wait, there's something here. I get the feeling of defensiveness. I get it. And no one's saying that you're not working hard, but there's something here that we need to dig into. Yes. So if you have somebody at the top who's really not buying into culture, and you get these results back, or something huge is happening in your organization, you're we really need to talk about that. If you're not, as your leadership team, in a place of trust, then you're not speaking candidly.
No.
Right? And so how can you assume how can you have that expectation of the employees of your organization?
Right.
To speak candidly.
Yes, and in order to speak candidly, you need to be vulnerable. There's a stigma to showing vulnerability,
absolutely.
right? And even if it's not an overtly spoken stigma, it's something that by observation, the employees are watching and learning and listening, even when you don't think they are, to see how people are treated when they try to put themselves out there and ask for help or share a perspective or
we had
anything of the sort.
I have employee engagement metrics. One of them is I look at PTO, the utilization of time off. And I was noticing our leadership team, by and large, was not taking time off. And so I sat down with them and I said, your employees are watching you and you're not taking time off, so they're not going to take time off.
Right.
We have employees.
It's so true.
You're burnout. Your employees are burnout. They need to see you taking time off. They need to see you disengaging, you going away on vacation. Do not take your laptop with you.
Yeah, truly disengaging.
Do not turn notifications off on your phone. I don't want to see you pinging me in the middle of the day. Like, truly. And your team will also understand the importance of that and start doing that. And so some people it's been harder than others. Some people I have to really work with. Others took heed and actually invested in that. Yeah. So that's one of those times where, you can be speaking one language and doing something else. They're going to follow what you're doing.
Yes.
They're going to follow the unspoken environment.
Yes.
The unspoken culture.
What would you say to the listeners of this podcast that they should really be mindful of as they're working with the people in their organization to shepherd them through the change? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see organizational leaders making, which doesn't even give the culture a chance to
communication.
thrive? Okay.
There's an assumption. There's an assumption from leadership that people should just know I'm doing what's in their best interest. We do quarterly check-ins now, so every quarter an employee facilitates a meeting with their team lead where it's their time to meet one-on-one. There's an outline of questions that they follow, but also open-ended time to just discuss their development as an employee, how they're doing in the organization, what their needs might be, instead of that dreaded yearly performance.
There's way too many assumptions, period, that are made when it comes to communicating things. I want to highlight that point because I think it's a really important one, that, it's a number of times things get communicated or ways that things get communicated, because, hey, guess what? Not everybody learns the same way.
Exactly.
So if you're not an auditory learner and you're a visual learner and you're just having communication with your team in an auditory manner, you're not reaching the people who don't learn that way.
Right.
And then you get upset at them because they didn't retain the message. It's like, well, hold on. And
what happens, I find, I don't know, we've talked about this before, Amanda, but I think a lot of times leaders will communicate in the way they prefer to receive information.
Yes.
Right? And then it doesn't even occur to them. And many can't read a room, let's be honest. I do believe that's something that in many ways, intuition is what we're talking about. I think in many ways, and we'll talk when we have our Casey joining us, who talks about body language. I'm curious what she'll have to say about this. I think in many ways you're kind of born with that or you're not, just how intuitive you are, how you can read an audience. A lot of times they'll think, okay, I said it once, in the way that would resonate with me.
Done.
That's it.
We're good.
Done. Yeah. I did the presentation the other day, and one of the employees said, can you send this to me? And I'm like, oh, that's great. So, I printed off slides and I have them in somewhere where everyone can access them on our company internet site. And everybody can access them at any time. And when I have new hires, I have this already built out. So, I don't know about you, Amanda, but I notice recently when I'm hiring people, they want to know what the culture is like.
Candidates are actually asking that.
What's the onboarding experience like? What's a professional development like?
Yes.
They aren't asking me for how much does it pay? What are the hours?
Right, no.
What kind of benefits do you have?
It's the tactical stuff.
Right.
That is not as important now.
Yes.
And they're focusing more, and this is a nice little preview to an upcoming episode, but it is, and this is something that we talk about quite a lot, actually, in the recruitment work that we do is how are we promoting the entire experience, because the nuts and bolts, as I'll call it, of the position are like usually the least interesting thing about the role.
Yes.
when a candidate's in those early phases.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, okay, it's a marketing director position. Like, how different is it from every other marketing director position out there?
Yes.
What is different, though, is the culture and the environment that I'm coming into.
Exactly. Are they going to, are we going to be a good fit? And often those questions now are speaking to that.
Right.
You know what, though? I've heard many people say, oh, but it's just, those are the kids these days. It's the Gen Zers. They're soft.
No, it's
that stuff
not.
isn't important. Back in my day, we just did what we did, and that's
suck
it.
it up, buttercup, and just go. Like, they're going to pay you. I'm going to, like, head down until I can retire.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm having candidates who come to us with experience, and they too are looking for that culture, that fit. They're curious about this is the last position I want to apply for. I want to ride off into the sunset here. And it's across the board. It's not just the younger generation.
Yep.
For culture, I think about what is that person's experience, their life cycle with our company from the beginning to the end. It's not just about getting them hired into a position,
right?
Which I think for at least in my work experience, often what is what it was. Like once I was in the door, they're like, drink by a fire hose, and then you figure it out.
Good luck.
And if we don't give you a review, then we don't have to give you a raise.
Yes, yes, it's true.
Yes,
that is so true.
Yes, and so I think about the life cycle of the employee with us from beginning to end, and however that exit looks, also what they experience in that exit.
Yes.
We have had the opportunity to have a couple employees come back to us, which I think is a huge statement to our culture and the great people we surround ourselves with. So I feel very fortunate for that.
And that's so important because you never know somebody that's exiting your organization, obviously depending on the circumstances, but you never know if or when they may come back, if or when they may be referring somebody to work with you. So you never, ever, ever, and so many organizations do this, miss out on opportunities to collect feedback, to make sure that their offboarding process is as pleasant and streamlined and intentional and purposeful as when you brought them on.
Communicating all along the way. It doesn't matter if they've decided to exit or we've decided this isn't working and we're parting ways.
Sure.
We always try to be clear about our communication, what the expectation, how this is going to work. And I also, because I am part owner of the company and I engage in this process, I do outsource our exit interviews to ensure that we're getting transparency, that somebody's not just saying something.
Right.
Like I try to put them in the position to leave everything on the table, to get it all out before they exit.
Yeah.
So we can get some really great feedback to know, wait, what did we miss here?
And that's consistent with how you conduct the culture surveys when they're part of the team. You engage with a third party. It happens to be us, but you engage with a third party to allow them to feel comfortable being fully transparent. And so the fact that you continue that experience through offboarding, I think just speaks to the consistency of the culture that you've created.
What would you say to people who argue there's no way to really measure culture? Really, it's about, it's
a feeling.
It's a feeling. And the solution is, let's throw some more pizza parties or take everybody, to the park once a year, the amusement park.
Do you want another pizza party? I have celiac, so I'm not eating at a pizza party. So you don't know what you don't know. How are you going to find out? How are you going to find out? I'm going to buy this, $1,500 hockey machine to put in the office for everybody to play with.
Yes.
Guess what? You can play ping pong on your break now.
Is that something that they needed? Did you ask? No.
Right.
No. I mean, out of our culture surveys, one of the things people were asking for is the opportunity to get together. Now, Our culture is that I engaged with Decision Associates in the fall of 2019 for a culture assessment. We executed the culture assessment in May of 2020.
Yes. What was happening back then?
I don't remember.
We were on lockdown. The whole world was shut down and locked in their homes. And so, but what came back was we want to socialize. We want to see each other. We want to be in person. So we started with online happy hours. We developed a team. I asked, they're called KBR Team, Kick Back and Relax. And it's a team of people. We come together and we plan virtual happy hours. As we came out of the pandemic, we started planning in-person events. So every quarter I try to bring everybody, even our remote employees who live further away, bring them in. Often our team leaders will use that as a time to like pull their whole team in to have a meeting and a get together to meet everybody in person. We hang out socially. They've just come up with some really great ideas too, some really fun stuff. I have like the buddy system. So they're your NetTech buddy. Anybody who comes into the company has an assigned NetTech buddy. People in our organization volunteer to be in that position. And they're the person who just kind of speaks to the culture. They're not on the same team. They're not your mentor. They're not there to train you on your job. They're the person, like if we have an in-person event, that comes up to you right away and goes, hey, I'm so glad we're meeting in person. Come here, I wanted you to meet this person and that person and that person. They're the person that you ask all those stupid questions like, where's the bathroom?
Right.
Like, what do I wear?
Questions that you maybe feel uncomfortable asking
I
your
always
boss.
say there's no stupid questions for your NetTech buddy. They're there to answer them and make your transition into our culture smoother. Because it's one thing to learn a job, or it's a new job and you come to the job with a skill set and you're learning how to do it. It's a whole other thing to learn that culture. So the more you have laid out, this is who we are, this is how we operate, and this is how we do things around here. And here's where your pens are. And if you have a favorite pen, let me know. And here's the coffee mugs and, all of that. There's somebody to help you with that transition too. Because I don't know how many times you started a new job, but that's unnerving. All of a sudden it's lunchtime. You're like, where do people eat lunch? Where do I go? Who do I sit with? Yeah. Even in a remote world, like all of a sudden I'm like doing all this training and I haven't seen a face in days.
Yes.
So I think we've covered a lot of really great information today. With you talking about your journey and the work that you've done on the culture with NetTech. So if I'm a listener and I've not invested any time or effort in my culture, I'm thinking, okay, this is a huge mountain that I'm preparing to climb. What's the first step?
Yeah, how do you eat an elephant? Right?
Yeah. What do I do here? This all sounds great, but now what?
Yeah, it is one bite at a time. I think if you are starting out, there's a lot of great content out there that you can start looking at. Just to Shrim does their talent conference. They have a lot of great information. Often culture falls into human resources, so a lot of current human resources have available to you conversations around talent in culture. So I would start there, getting curious and getting your whistle wet on some of the terminology and what you're looking at and really thinking about what you want to create. I think it's unfortunate the culture has fallen into the human resource bucket because some of it is conflicting. There is work that you do in culture that feels counterintuitive to a traditional human resources.
Right.
And what traditional human resource experts are good at, right? The investment in educating yourself and then looking at, if you're in leadership, what do I want to see happen? And is this, do I need to bring a consultant in to educate myself a little bit, understand it? Do I have someone in my organization that's really showing a natural inclination for this? Or do I, need to resource that? When you're finally like, okay, I want to know the truth. I think you can't go wrong with doing culture assessment. Keep it anonymous.
Yep.
There are a lot of tools right now. You can go, we'll do one, you like download our platform. A lot of the HR platforms have some kind of
Employee engagement survey, they're usually called.
Yes.
Yes.
I would not go with that.
Nope.
It's too canned. It's not
quantifiable.
It's not quantifiable. It's not going to deliver to you what you need to know. You really want something customized.
Yep.
You're unique.
Yes.
You have structure in your organization that a lot of other organizations have, but your culture is unique to you.
One thing I think organizations forget to do when it comes to these culture surveys, and it really is a game changer, they forget to share the results transparently, the good, the bad, and the ugly, with the employees who so graciously gave their contribution to contribute and provide the input. And they also neglect to really keep the employees in the loop and involve the employees in coming up with solutions to tackle those areas. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so, we do the culture assessment. I share all the results, the good, the bad, the ugly. I do not share all the comments because that would take a long time. And also, again, I know who said that. I know who said that. So I kind of pull that and paraphrase and pull out common themes. Like, all right, these are the common themes. So these are the things we need to work on, right? And then we do pulse surveys. So those come every quarter. So we pick those areas of opportunity. We come up with a game plan. What's our goal? How are we going to do this? We present that. We do pulse surveys to let us know, are we getting there? Are we not? Or, where we stand? And then again, that leads us right up to the culture assessment. All along the way, I'm showing the comparison. I'm showing the percentages. I'm reviewing the comments, and I'm also showing, okay, where are we at with our goals? Have we met them? Are we getting close? Have we checked this off the list? So they see where we're headed. You cannot be transparent enough. And it's also a balance, too, on transparency, right? Like, the kids don't need to know everything.
Sure.
But they need to know a lot.
Absolutely.
You need to trust them. They are grown adults,
Yes.
You need to be able to entrust in them and have a feeling of engagement. We're all in this together.
Yes, together.
So there does need to be a level of transparency and consistent communication.
And inclusion.
Because that keeps you engaged, that keeps you invested. Like,
Right.
I'm appreciated here. I'm heard here.
And it shows humility on behalf of the leader.
Correct.
I don't have all the answers. Let's work together to figure it out. It's
again,
so
that
much.
vulnerability.
Yes.
Right? That
yes.
vulnerability that opens the door for everyone to be human and stretch themselves.
Yes.
A fantastic episode.
Agreed.
Ladies, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Wendy Bahm, Chief Culture Officer for Networking Technologies. We really appreciate you taking some time to come and chat with us today. On behalf of myself and Elizabeth Cipolla, my co-host, thank you for listening to this episode of The Aha Moment. It's just the two of us for the next episode.
It is.
We're chatting about interview best practices.
I can't wait, yes.
So if you're in the current market for a job, or if you're going to be soon, certainly listen to it. Even employers who have positions to fill, I think there's going to be some valuable nuggets for you in that episode as well. So be sure to tune in. As a reminder, we are on Spotify, so make sure you subscribe so you're notified every time a new episode comes out. And you can also find us on Instagram at the Aha Moment Pod, and on LinkedIn we are Decision Associates. You can also check out our website at decisionassociates.net. So thank you so much for streaming this episode, and we will catch you next time. And I think it's time for a round of applause.
Yes.
We did it. Nicely done.